Hi everybody, hope you guys are well. Now, I wasn't going to do a podcast until tomorrow. I wasn't going to be back on the channel until tomorrow. But given the events of today, I feel like I've got to get something out. I feel like I've got to discuss just a few topics that have kind of arisen today. And I want to start off with the breaking news that's just literally come out at the time of me recording this. And it's ultimately the news that's prompted me to record this. And that is that Roman Abramovich has handed over the stewardship and care of Chelsea Football Club to the trustees of Chelsea's charitable foundation. What does that mean? Of course, everything that's going on in Ukraine means that there will be and there have been further sanctions placed on those with ties to the Kremlin and ties to Vladimir Putin. And we know that Roman Abramovich has had issues in the past because of his connections to Vladimir Putin. I don't know how close he is. I don't know how connected he is. I'm not going to profess to know the ins and outs of it or the politics of it, but I'm looking at this from a football perspective. I know that sounds, or it might sound a little bit insensitive given what's going on at the moment, but I'm not in a position to comment on anything other than football. So I don't want to say things that aren't true or are inaccurate. But it's really, really interesting this, because what does it mean for Chelsea's future as a football club? We've long joked and laughed as Arsenal fans and said, well, the day that Abramovich gets fed up, packs his bags and walks off, Chelsea will be up shit street. You know, they've got a huge wage budget. They've got a huge or wage structure. They've got a huge amount of money that they've outlaid on players. They've got a really expensive and valuable squad, and their operating costs must be huge. And while Roman Abramovich has been there, obviously their commercial value and their revenue has obviously increased, because they're a club that are now regarded as one of the big boys in European football, when actually when he took over, they were on the floor and on the verge of falling apart. So the value of the club has definitely increased, but has it increased so much, and has the income increased so much that it can function in the way it currently does without Roman Abramovich? And that's the big question here. I don't really know the ins and outs of Chelsea's finances, but this, if I was a Chelsea fan, would really, really worry me. Now, Matt Law of The Telegraph has just said that Roman Abramovich, despite handing over the custodianship of the football club, remains the owner unless he is going to be sanctioned to the point where he has to give up the football club. He is still the owner, and providing there aren't further sanctions put in place against him, then he will still be able to invest money. But you can't believe or think that there won't be further action taken if this invasion of Ukraine continues. And you can't think that there won't be further action taken against those close to and connected with Vladimir Putin. We've seen that the West don't necessarily want to put boots on the ground. And again, you know, I think that's wrong, but this is not a political YouTube channel, so I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole now. But we've seen them be willing to put some sanctions in place, and to allow Roman Abramovich to kind of continue plying his trade and owning one of our football clubs, I think just sends all the wrong messages. So I do envisage that there'll be further action taken, in which case Roman Abramovich may well have to give up ownership of Chelsea Football Club. And what impact will that have on them moving forward? Who knows? We're still finding out more and more about this story, and we'll be in a better position, I guess, to talk about it on tomorrow's podcast. But for now, it's just big news that's really, really rocked the boat. And it's something that I guess we probably should have seen coming, given what's been going on in the last few days. But Chelsea fans, you must be bricking it, because without Roman Abramovich, yes, you're a much bigger club than you were when he took over. And yes, you still have a great squad of players. And yes, you can probably operate at a higher level than you did prior to his arrival. But his investment has been key. It's been at the forefront of everything good that Chelsea have done in the last 20 or so years. And you take that away, or you put him in a position where he can no longer provide that support, and that changes the landscape dramatically for Chelsea Football Club, in my opinion. Look, I don't say this often. I feel sorry for the fans, because this is nothing to do with you guys, and your club is being caught in the crossfire of a war and of political issues, which is never nice. But this is what happens when we allow people with questionable pasts and shady business dealings, and people whose characters are out there for people to kind of question and people who have been in those positions where they've been involved in unsavory things, who the source of their wealth has always been questioned. This is what happens when we let these people come into the country and buy up our football clubs. Football is so deep rooted into the British culture. And look, anyone can buy any business, okay? I'm not saying that, that's the way things should be, where we're telling people, no, you can't buy this. But particularly with our Premier League football clubs, particularly with our football clubs across the leagues, we have to be careful about who we're allowing in and who we're allowing to take control of them, because these clubs mean so much to the people that follow, love and support them. There was lots of noise, wasn't there, around the Saudi takeover at Newcastle, and rightly so. The reasons expressed were perfectly valid and genuine. But throughout that, I was always of the opinion that that shouldn't be an anger or a frustration that is pointed towards the fans. They have nothing to do with it. As far as they're concerned, an owner is coming in and an owner is going to put success at the forefront of what they're doing. For some football fans, that's all they want. But this thing now with Abramovich just puts that wider question into the spotlight again around why are we allowing people, for example, with ties to a regime like Vladimir Putin's owning our Premier League football clubs? Why are we allowing people with questionable human rights records to come in and own our football clubs? But that doesn't lie with the fans. That's with the authorities that allow these things to happen and that pass these people through their fit and proper persons test, which is obviously a load of nonsense. But I do feel sorry for the Chelsea fans, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are going to suffer from this if indeed they're no longer able to benefit from Roman Abramovich's investment. Okay, in other news today, Manchester United dropped points at home to Watford. It was a little bit open for Arsenal a few weeks ago, and now it's wide bloody open. And I don't want to get sucked in. I don't want to get carried away. I'm really desperately trying not to allow myself to fall into that false sense of security about Arsenal finishing in the top four. A few weeks ago, I was still saying that it's something that, if we did, it would be a great achievement. But as the season is progressing, as the landscape is changing, it feels like it would be a huge opportunity missed if we don't nick in and get that fourth place. It could be so key to this club pushing on and developing to that next stage a little bit ahead of schedule in many people's eyes. United were knocking on the door against Watford today, but they just couldn't find the breakthrough. And it's a great result for us, and it's a bad result for United. And of course, they take on Manchester City coming up. I think they've got some other really difficult games around the corner as well. So you can take encouragement from that. Let's just hope that we can capitalise and put ourselves in the strongest position possible. We'll talk about all these things in a lot more detail on tomorrow's podcast. In the meantime, it is Saturday night. So if you want to have a bit of a laugh, watch Rodri's handball that the referees and the VARs have decided shouldn't be given in the game between City and Everton. Listen, I'd rather City win the league than Liverpool, so I'm all for it. But it should have been a penalty kick to Everton, which they could have drawn level from. If I was a Liverpool fan, if I was an Everton fan tonight, I would be livid. It's so bad of a decision that it's laughable. Check it out. Have a look. Let me know what you think in the comments. And we'll catch up tomorrow with a more in-depth podcast. I'll be joined by some guests as well, and we'll talk through the Chelsea stuff. We'll talk about United dropping points, given that Arsenal are not in action this weekend. We'll talk about what it means for Arsenal, and we'll pick up all the rest of the big stories from the weekend's football. Don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're new. Thank you so much for your support. We'll be back tomorrow, as I say, with a full-length show. Cheers.